Hey fellas, welcome back to Punch Ons. This is the Aussie UFC MMA channel where we talk a bit of shit, give our predictions for the fights, waste a bit of money on the multis and get up and do it all again the next week. So I'm looking forward to tonight. This video is going to be my last minute predictions and sort of news for UFC Paris, which is happening tonight at about 2 a.m. Aussie time. I really would like this card to be at the normal time, early in the morning on a Sunday, but unfortunately, when it's over there in Paris, in Europe, the times are always a bit cooked for us Aussies. I'm DJing tonight till about midnight, then I've got a 2-hour drive home, so I'm going to be getting home at about 2 a.m. when the fights start, which could be a good thing. I'm either going to lock in and go and watch them all the way through till the morning, or more likely I'm going to watch Sean O'Bannon versus Sam Hughes, and I'll be passed out like a light after that. Anyway, there's a bit of news I wanted to talk about, and I kind of also wanted to react to the the weigh-ins, the ceremonial weigh-ins and the stare-downs, because there was a couple of interesting moments there, and just give my last-minute thoughts on the odds, because for some reason it took a long time to get the odds published on the betting sites this week, so I couldn't really do much of a breakdown of the odds, but they're out now, and I'll walk you through which ones I think are a bit cooked, whether there's any live underdogs, and yeah, we'll talk about every single fight. So I'm just going to go quickly. The first fight that's going down. Well, firstly, we'll talk about the fights that are. Well, firstly, we'll talk about the fights that have changed. So as we know, Fares Ziam has had a death in the family or some sort of personal matter that's meant that he's pulling out of the fight against Kawhi Fernandez. So I was a bit upset about that. I don't mind Fares Ziam, and I thought that was going to be a decent fight. But we've got Harry Hardwick stepping in, who's a UK prospect. He is explosive and dynamic, and he's been waiting for his chance to debut in the UFC. Guru's a big fan of him, and he talks about the Hardwick bros a lot. I can't say that I've researched him as much as or watched his career as closely as others have, but here he is getting his opportunity to step up on a big fight night against Kawhi Fernandez. I'll talk about that fight a little bit later, but yeah, that's big news. The other bit of news that's dropped is, unfortunately, I think yesterday or today, Keita missed weight and he's out of his fight with Patricio Pitbull, and that fight's off the card. They're not going to be replacing that fight, which is disappointing. Keita weighed in at 149. Apparently, he's never missed weight before, and this is his first time. But Pitbull, rightfully so, is not taking this up-and-coming TKO artist who's missed weight, because that sort of spells disaster for Pitbull, and I think this fight was going to be disastrous for Pitbull anyway, so probably a good career move for Pitbull to not accept that fight, but disappointing that we don't get to see Keita, and he's been, I think, cut from the UFC as well, which is a little bit sad. I think the UFC is starting to go hard on these weight misses. We saw Brian Battle cut from the UFC, but he's missed weight a few times. Weird that Brian Ortega hasn't been cut yet, but he must have Dana White privilege. So Keita is out of the UFC. I'm sure he'll find his way back eventually, but disappointing. Pitbull's off the card. I think they're going to. Pitbull's asking for a fight at the Rio card, the Charles Oliveira, Rafael Fiziev card. So maybe we get him a matchup for that fight night. I was looking through the rankings. A lot of people are matched up at featherweight there, but perhaps someone around the 10 to 15 mark, a Steve Garcia could be a good matchup for Pitbull, or maybe even a David Onama. We'll see what happens with that. All right, let's get into the card and talk about just a quick little last-minute predictions here. So the first fight, Sean O'Bannon versus Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes has come into a $1.28 favourite, and Bannon is sitting at a pretty juicy $3.72. Sean O'Bannon had good energy at the weigh-in. She looked like she was, fit and ready to go. Sam Hughes looked pretty calm and composed and just was sort of laughing at Sean O'Bannon. So maybe Sam Hughes knows something that we don't know, and that the thought of Sam Hughes by points is pretty telling there. Interesting that Sam Hughes by finish is paying $9 or $10. That shows how little faith the punters have in Sam Hughes to get a finish and to actually inflict damage on Sean O'Bannon. I'm still feeling that Sean O'Bannon will get a robbery decision. I think she only has to win one round and make one other round close. I am a little bit worried about this one, and I've dialed back on how much punting force I'm putting behind this one, but I can see a Sean O'Bannon by decision or by submission. That $15 by Sean O'Bannon by decision is actually by a submission is pretty juicy. So I'm sticking with Sean O'Bannon by decision on that one. Rinat Fakhretdinov and Andreas Gustafsson, two very, very scary-looking dudes, but they did look calm and composed and a little bit like they were having fun in there. I thought they were going to have an intense, scary stare down. They're both jacked and covered in tats and just really, you would not want to run into these blokes in a dark alley. But then Rinat gave him a kiss on the head and they cuddled it up and dapped it up. So maybe we won't get quite as heavy as a war as I'm expecting on this one. I think it's still going to be an amazing fight. It's a mirror match of just blockheads and marauders moving forward. The odds are not too bad on this one either. Obviously, the Rinat or Gus by TKO were very live outcomes. Both guys by points could happen as well. The punters are suggesting that we don't think we're going to see a lot of grappling and jiu-jitsu and submissions in this fight. I'm going to stick with Andreas Gustafsson by TKO or points. I think the double chance is going to be pretty decent for Andreas Gustafsson, TKO or points, $1.84. Not the best odds, but I think that's the way I'm leaning. It'll be one of these two, I reckon. So make your own decision up there. I'm going to go with Gus by a crazy bloody decision. Brad Tavares and Robert Brycek. Tavares came in looking jacked like he always did. He's a pretty imposing sort of dude, but also a very calm kind of guy. Brycek came in with a bit of Polish attire and dressed up a bit weird. He looked a little bit nervous, honestly. When I zoomed in on the face off when they were staring each other down, Tavares was in control and very still, and Brycek was shaky. He looked like he was a little bit intimidated by Brad Tavares, and this is his kill or be killed moment. Anything could happen in this fight, but I feel a little bit more confident about Brad Tavares by KO or points. Tavares $5.50 by TKO could be a pretty juicy addition to some of those multis. I think the $1.99 for Brad Tavares by points is the safe option though. So I'm sticking with Brad Tavares by decision. Sam Patterson versus Trey Waters. Both guys, Trey looked a little bit more relaxed. Sam Patterson looked a little bit twitchy and snappy and a bit tense, I think. Maybe that's just his style, and maybe that's going to give him that fast twitch, good reaction time, and he's going to be locked in and ready to go. But it was interesting to see Trey Waters looking pretty loosey-goosey, composed, and like he had a bit of quiet confidence about him. I'm not gonna read too much into how they look in the stare downs. There's some decent odds going on this fight. I think the punters are reflecting here that a lot of possible outcomes could happen here. I don't see Trey Waters by submission happening. Obviously, that's the least likely outcome there outside of a draw. Trey Waters by points at 625 is not a bad bet at all. That's very, very tempting odds, but I think they are trying to tempt us there, and I think the guys who know that. If you know, you know. Sam Patterson should get this one by decision, by finish, I think. $1.50 outright for Sam Patterson, but then if you're willing to commit to an outcome, you're going to get some pretty decent odds there. Sam Patterson by submission, decent. Sam Patterson, $6.25 by TKO. That's a juicy little number there, so I might be having a bit of an inquiry on that one. My pick is still Sam Patterson by finish in round 2. I'm going to go with TKO round 2. Next up is this new fight that got added, which is Kaue Fernandez and Harry Hardwick. I'm probably going to be staying away from this one punting-wise. I just don't know enough about Hardwick or Fernandez to really commit and really feel confident picking a result. Both guys are at a bit of a disadvantage here, coming in at late notice, short notice, and having a change in opponent. Obviously, Kaue Fernandez is a little bit more lucky here because he was training for a fight against a tough dude. Harry Hardwick I don't know enough about his style to say that he's a similar style to Fernandez, but I think he is a boxer and a high volume output fighter, and he would like to keep this on the feet. Yeah, I think the punters are pretty keen on Kaue Fernandez here. Kaue looked a little bit nervous and he had a shit mustache at the weigh-in. Hardwick has got the biggest head, like a megamind head. He looks like an upside-down Nathan Cleary, if you know who that is. Cleary's chin is basically Harry Hardwick's top of his head. He's a kind of weird-looking dude. Looks a bit like a Teletubby. he was dapping up Bisping. He looked pretty comfortable in there. I wouldn't be too surprised if Hardwick gets it done, but I'm just going to stick with Cauê Fernandes. I reckon he's going to school him and finish him probably round 2 or 3. Cauê Fernandes, TKO round 3, or a close decision might be the call too, or where Cauê wins the last 2 rounds. I'm going to go with Cauê Fernandes, KO or points. Marcin Tybura, Ante Deliha. Deliha looked a bit shit, to be honest. He looked old. Looked like he's been through some shit. He looks like he's had some hard times. He had a weird thing going on his pec, like on his chest. I don't know if it was a third nipple that he's always had, or whether it was a staph infection or something. But there was a weird looking lump below his left pec, I think. I don't know if it was staph or what. I'm not sure. If it's staph, that's usually a sign that their gas tank might not be as good as it usually is, and we're talking heavyweight here, so I can see Ante Deliha gassing out hard in this fight. Tybura, he looks stoic, but geez, he's letting himself go. He's been in a pretty good paddock, I reckon. He always looks like he's just come from the drive-through in KFC. I'm not as confident as I was looking at the state of Tybura. He's got that same look about him that he had before he got chinned by Aspinall, so I don't know about this one. I'm going to stick with Tybura by smudge, by decision. Tybura by submission paying $11.50 is pretty wild. I'll probably throw a little dabble on there, because I think if he gets him to the ground, Tybura's shown that he can have some crafty submissions, and he can look for a Kimura or like a rear naked, or maybe an armbar or something. But yeah, I think Tybura by submission or points is what I've been feeling all week. It's not my most confident pick, but I'm going to stick with it. Tybura is going to get this one done. Umar C, Brenderson Ribeiro. I was a little bit on the fence about this fight as well, to be honest. And even though Ribeiro looks like a savage, and he was having a bit of a crack at the crowd and that, C came in looking jacked and just looking like the guy. He had the home crowd behind him. He looked in pretty epic shape, and he just looks nasty. He looks like he's going to get something. I've changed my mind about this one. Umar C by points, paying $3.40. I can see him getting this one done by KO or submission. I'm starting to lean more towards a finish here. Ribeiro, he can make it the distance, but Ribeiro's 3 outcomes here, $8.50, $15 and $13. That's not promising signs for Ribeiro, but maybe it is promising signs for punters. But yeah, I'm sticking with Umar C. He looks nasty, and I think he's going to get a nasty finish. William Gomis and Robert Ruhala. Not much to say about this fight. Robert Ruhala does not look all that imposing or impressive. The punters are getting behind William Gomis. I think William Gomis looked taller and lankier and looked a lot more comfortable and composed there as well. Gomis, I think, is going to get this done in his typical style. Back foot, more effective, precise striking, better footwork, winning the outside foot battle, kicking Ruhala's legs, jabbing him up, body kicks. He's going to be, throwing his hands out there and eye poking him. And yeah, I can just see William Gomis 30-27 here. And Robert Ruhala, he'll be looking to swing big punches and he has a puncher's chance, but I don't see him beating William Gomis. I'm sticking with Gomis by decision. Reece McKee and Axel Solar. Yeah. Solar gave me McLovin vibes. He looks like a 15-year-old American kid. I don't know. He also had a weird thing going on with his chest. He had like a weird, I don't know if it was staph as well, or a cut or something going on his chest. I think it was on the other side to Ante Deliha, but that's not a great sign either. Punters are getting behind Axel Solar. I think that a lot of people are just picking the less shit fighter here, or what they think is the less shit fighter. Reece McKee, a lot of people are picking him here and thinking that he might get this one done. I'm going to stick with, it's a toss-up fight. I'm going to stick with Axel Solar by TKO or decision. Axel Solar by TKO is $5. Might be worth a nibble there, but $3 for points is also pretty decent. Man, there's some tasty multis to cook up this week. I reckon there'll be some big wins getting posted after this card. Balaji Oki, Mason Jones I'm glad this has been moved down the card a little bit, even though I think Paul Craig is going to get chinned within a minute or two. I think that fight with Modestas deserved to be the feature fight of this card. Borralho, Mason Jones. Mason Jones has been the favourite all week, but only very slight. They both look like beasts. Mason Jones kind of gives me JDM vibes. He just looks calm and, just going to get it done. He looked a bit more composed there. I think the story of this fight is going to be Borralho doing some explosive stuff early, has a moment where he rocks Mason Jones or he gets him down and we're a bit worried. But Mason Jones shows his grit and his toughness and his determination, hangs in there, starts to take over the fight in round 2 and then has a clear striking advantage in round 3, and we get a 29-28 decision for Mason Jones because he's just being more patient and more efficient and more effective and accurate with his strikes, while Borralho swangs and bangs. Might be a bit like the Robert Ruffy Willem Gomez fight, where one fighter is more explosive and dangerous, but the other one is more smart, experienced, and willing to not engage in the fight and just get it done in a clean sort of manner. So I'm going to go with Mason Jones by 29-28 decision, winning rounds 2 and 3. Next is Modestas Bukauskaus versus Paul Craig. Craig did his whole chaos thing. He came in with his painted Scottish flag on his face. He was screaming and, aura farming, getting the crowd amped up. The crowd got behind him. Respect to Paul Craig. I've said it all week that he's a good lad. He's good for the UFC, but I think his time in the UFC is nigh. He's coming to an end. He's on his way out. And I think Modestas, even though I sensed a little bit of nerves in Modestas, he was calm. He won the stare off, like the locked in. He didn't blink once. He looked like a little bit nervous too, though. Like, I think Paul Craig is a intimidating type of dude, and when he's in your face and staring you down with that Braveheart sort of vibe, it would be intimidating. And I think Modestas, I've been putting he's my lock of the week, and I do think that he's going to win by KO, but it's Paul Craig, man. He can pull something out of his ass. Modestas by KO is the punter's outcome here. Modestas money line is $1.28. That's really short, and I think that's reflective of how this fight goes 95 times out of 100. It's round 1, KO, flatline, after maybe you're dropping him once or twice already and the ref having seen enough. And I think he's going to get in and rescue him from any further punishment. Modestas Bukauskaus, KO, lock of the card. Have not changed my mind on that. All right, co-main event. Benoit Saint-Denis and Mauricio Ruffy. And Ruffy looked good in the weigh-ins. He was confident. He got a big pop from the crowd, even though he's fighting against the hometown guy. Ruffy, when BSD came in, guy looked constipated, dude. He was like, yeah! He looked like he was trying to squeeze a shit out after a big feed of Hungry Jacks the night before. Yeah, BSD. I can see this going badly for him. He's going to get chinned, I reckon. I was calling TKO or points. Ruffy by points is paying $6. You could still look at the double chance here. KO or points $1.66. You're not going to get much value because I think, and everybody else probably is starting to think, that this is going to go in a pretty bad way for Benoit, and I think he might get chinned. When they even had their moment in the stare downs and they were facing off with each other, it already looked like Ruffy had found his range, and he looked like he was going to have a reach advantage and just have Benoit's measure. I don't think this is going to go good for Benoit. I had him in my cooked multi, in my sicko multi, that Benoit could get it done. You might want to hold on to that coin because I can see it going Ruffy's way. Pretty confident. Mauricio Ruffy, KO round 2 or 3. Looking forward to that fight, but. And then we've got the main event. Still hype as for this fight. I still can't believe that Nasruddin Imavov is a $2.10 underdog. That's cooked odds. I don't know about that. I'm starting to feel less and less confident about my Caio Borralho pick. They both look solid at the weigh-ins. They both look in shape. They're always in shape, these guys. Imavov looked a little bit thicker and more muscular and more dense, which could be a factor in the fight if it does go to the ground or if they push each other up against the cage in the clinch, which I can see happening. I think if Imavov's smart, he will look to impose his will and use his physicality advantage here, even though it is risky for him because his ground game is not as technically good as Borralho and we've seen some weaknesses. I think that might be offset by Imavov's size and solid like body type advantage. They both had their sunnies on. Fucking idiots. You're inside, boys. Imavov nearly tripped over. He looked like he couldn't even see where he was going, and he was trying to take his sunnies off. Just take them off, dude. I guess maybe he was trying to rip on the fighting nerds thing, but yeah, just stick to your own vibe, dude. It's a 50-50 fight. I think the smart money's on Imavov by points. $3.70 for Imavov by points is kind of insane, but so is $9.25 for Borralho by submission. I swear these odds are overhyped. I don't know if I'm not looking at the right website here, but they look kind of insane, some of these odds. I think a lot of people are saying that this fight's going to go the distance. It very well could do, but I've just got this little itchy thought in the back of my head that Borralho is going to get a rear naked choke in round 4. So if that happens, that's a tasty little addition to your multi there. Caio Borralho, round 4, rear naked choke submission after losing the fight. I'm staying with it, but Imavov by decision or even by TKO is a scary prospect that I would not be surprised at all if it happens. So, yeah, there we are. There's the picks. I'll put them up on the screen as well for you to have a look at. These are my full card Paris UFC Imavov versus Borralho predictions. Couple of final points here. Respect to the French translator. He's up there with the Fabio dude. I like the energy that the French translator gives. I think French is a pretty annoying language to listen to, but this guy gets into it, and he's got that energy of trying to maintain the actual vibe of what the fighter says, and he gets the crowd going. I like the French translator. I'm looking forward to seeing a few big moments on the mic tomorrow night. Bisping did the readouts that Rogan normally does. Bisping's all right at it, but geez, he looked like he was on the gear. He looked like he'd been spending a bit of time with McGregor when he was trying to get out the door at the end, when he was trying to walk off the stage. He was huffing and puffing and walking down the stairs while he was giving his final announcement. Just chill, bro. All right, just get it done and then read your lines and then walk off the stage. Bisping's got a bit to learn. That's about it, boys. I hope I make it to the card tonight. There's a good chance I'll fall asleep and pass out, but even if I do, I'll go back and rewatch it and I'll post up my post-fight either tomorrow or early through the week. Looking forward to this card. Hope you like the picks. Hope you enjoyed the content this week and the breakdowns, and I'll see you fucking legends on the next one. Punch on. You.